state machine models. So we have seen alarm system for automatic seat belt warning system. So how three states have been defined and how state transition happens, what are the conditions required, how from alarm off to waiting to alarm on, once again alarm on to alarm off state, how state transition happens. So this is one type of modeling the whole system. So next we'll see one more type of modeling, which is called a sequential program model. Here the functions of or processing requirements are executed in sequence. The program instructions are iterated and executed conditionally, and data gets transferred through a series of operations. FSMs are good choice for sequential program modeling. Flowchart is another important tool used for modeling sequential program. The FSM approach represents the states, events, transitions, and actions, whereas the flowchart models the execution flow. Okay, now let us discuss the same example, automatic seatbelt warning system only. Now with respect to sequential program model, how it's going to look, that we are going to see now. Okay, now this is the same model. You can see the different flowchart kind of a thing here using sequential programming model. Previously we have seen FSM, how different states are getting transition happens. Now we will see how a sequential program model for the same automatic seat belt warning system will work. First, obviously the first step is ignition key. We have to check whether it is on or off. If it is off, then there is no point, it's not, because the vehicle itself is off, then there is no need of seat belt. The whole process will start once the ignition key switch is on. Then wait for 10 seconds. Okay, you give some time for the driver, allow him to wear the seat belt. Right, soon after, after 1 millisecond, if the siren started, then there is no use, because the driver has to sit, he will switch on the ignition, then he will adjust his seat, then he will plan of wearing the seat belt. So give him some sufficient time of 10 seconds. Still, if ignition is on and seat belt is not on, that means seat belt he has not yet on, then it has to start a timer, set timer for 5 seconds. Here this is the step. Okay, seat belt is on. Okay, now if seat belt is on and ignition is on and seat belt is on, then directly end the process. There is no need of giving any warning, because he is following the rules. The seat belt warning system will come after the ignition. If he is not wearing the seat belt, then the siren should start. Now after this condition, for example, after setting the time, ignition still it is on condition, seat belt, if it is S, right, then the timer has to expire and the alarm will stop. Right, if timer is expired, seat belt is on, timer is expired, then once again ignition on, then once again it will check. If ignition on, if it is no, then directly once again you have to end. That means what, you have to keep on checking different states. Right, it is a flowchart kind of a thing. It is called as sequential programming model. It is also used for some of the embedded system design. Okay, next we'll see a simple program for this. Go on defining the different states. I hope all of you know how to use the define in C programming. So define on, off, S, no. Go on giving digital values as 1 0 1 0, right? Then start writing the programs. First program, the wide seat belt warning system. It is the first program. Then part of that we are going to create one more program, which is wait for 10 seconds. Then check the condition. If ignition key is on, right, you will get inside the loop. Then if check seat belt is off, then set timer for 5 seconds and start the alarm. Okay, so what are the two conditions? You have to check for the ignition keys on. After 10 seconds, you have to wait for 10 seconds after ignition is on. Then even after 10 seconds, if the driver is not wearing the seat belt, then set the timer and alarm will start. Okay, now after this, by chance if he wears the seat belt, then alarm has to stop. That's why we are checking this while condition. Okay, check for seat belt, check for ignition, timer. Any one of these condition fails, then we have to stop the alarm. Okay, then concurrent or communicating process models. So you have to go on create and initialize events like wait timer expire, ignition on, ignition off, seat belt on, seat belt off, Okay, all these conditions you have to define. Create task ignition key status monitor, create task seat belt status monitor. Okay, then create task called as alarm timer. I will show you how it works. Right now you can see here different tasks we have defined. Task, the whole block diagram is called as tasks for different tasks for seat belt warning system. Right, then whatever we have seen previously. Now concurrent processing program model for seat belt warning system, how it works. So we have divided the whole task into small tasks. First one is wait timer task. It is for 10 seconds. Ignition key status monitoring, you can write a separate small program, keep it in while loop. If ignition is on, set event ignition on or reset it, else reset the system. Okay, then alarm control task, wait for the signaling from wait timer task. Okay, wait timer expire, if ignition on and seat belt is off, then alarm should start. Okay, then ignition seat belt status monitor task. Right, it will also get the inputs from different multiple tasks. Okay, then you can see here while seat belt is on, set event seat belt on, else it will be off. This information has to go to this alarm control. Now alarm control will give timer task input, wait for the event alarm start. After 5 seconds it will switch off, then once again it will go on repeating. Okay, this is the whole process. Then the embedded firmware design and development process we are going to see here. Embedded firmware is responsible for controlling the various peripherals of the embedded hardware and generating responses in accordance with functional requirements of the product. The embedded firmware is usually stored in permanent memory, which is ROM, and it is non-alterable by the end users. ROM is read-only memory. It is not possible to alter it. Designing embedded firmware requires understanding of particular embedded product hardware, like various component interfacing, memory map details, IO port details, configuration and register details of various hardware chips used, and some programming languages, either low-level assembly language or high-level languages like C, C++. The embedded firmware development process starts with the conversion of the firmware requirements into a program model using various modeling tools. There exists two basic approaches for the design and implementation of embedded firmware, namely the super loop based approach and the embedded operating based approach. Okay, now the embedded firmware design approaches, the super loop approach, suitable for applications that are not time critical and where the response time is not so important. Embedded systems where missing deadlines are acceptable. Like if you think about automotive electronics application, if we are in need of some what you call the windowing system, automatic windowing system, there you can use this kind of super loop approach, which is not so time critical. But if you're planning of ABS, then please don't go for this because ABS is very time critical. Very similar to a conventional procedural programming where the code is executed task by task. The tasks are executed in never-ending loop. The task listed on top on the program code is executed first, and the tasks just below the top are executed after completing the first task. Okay, typical super loop implementation will look like this. Configure the common parameters and perform initialization for various hardware components, memory, register, etc. Start the first task and execute it. Execute the second task, execute the next task, so on up to continuously go on executing one by one in a sequential fashion. Execute the last defined task. Jump back to the first task and follow the same flow as void main, and this process will continue. Right? Void main, configure, initialization, while task 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, never ending loop. That's why they called it has put in while 1. That means continuously it is true only. What are the advantage? Doesn't require an operating system for task scheduling and monitoring, and free from OS related overheads. Simple and straightforward design. There's no complications involved. Go on executing the tasks one after the other. It reduced memory footprint. Obviously, the code itself becomes very small. That memory requirement itself will reduce. Drawbacks: non-real time in execution behavior. As the number of tasks increases, the frequency at which a task gets CPU time for execution also increases. Right, so it becomes non-real time. Any issues in any task execution may affect the functioning of the product. This can be effectively tackled by using watchdog timers for task execution monitoring. I hope all of you know what is the task watchdog timer. We have already discussed in the previous unit, which will keep track of the CPU performance. If CPU, right? So quickly I will tell you what is a watchdog timer. It will keep a watch on the CPU execution. If CPU fails to reset the watchdog timer after set time, watchdog timer in turn reset the whole system so as to maintain its stability. Embedded firmware design approaches, embedded OS based approach. The embedded device contains an embedded operating system, which can be one of the real-time operating systems, which is RTOS, or a customized general purpose operating system, GPOS. The embedded OS is responsible for scheduling the execution of user tasks and the allocation of system resources among multiple tasks. It involves a lot of OS related overheads apart from managing and executing user defined tasks. Okay. So Microsoft Windows XP Embedded is an example of general purpose OS for embedded devices. Point of sale POS terminals, gaming stations, tablet PCs, etc. are examples of embedded devices running on embedded general purpose OS. Windows CE, Windows Mobile, QNX. QNX is one of the most famous embedded OS. VxWorks, also very famous. ThreadX, Micro C or OS2, Embedded Linux, Symbian. So there are so many other. Contico is there, which is meant for uh, small handheld devices, embedded devices, like the health monitoring system or the watches what we are getting, what most of people are wearing. Contico is there. On that we have simulation, Kuja simulators are there, etc. are examples of RTOS employed in embedded product development. Mobile phones, PDAs, flight control systems, etc. are examples of embedded devices that run on RTOS, right? Because they are very time critical. If you miss a single millisecond, if a task is missed by a single microsecond, the whole system is going to collapse. So there you can't take the risk, you have to go for real-time OSs. Embed firmware development using assembly language. Assembly language is the human readable notation of machine language. Machine language is a processor understandable language. Machine language is a binary representation and it contains zeros and ones. As I told, machine will understand only binary values 0 or 1. Assembly language and machine language are processor or controller dependent. An assembly language program written for one processor or controller family will not work with others. That's why 8086 is from Intel, its assembly program is different. If you take the same 16-bit microprocessor from Motorola, its assembly program will be different. So it is machine dependable, where high level languages are machine independable, but they are not efficient. So you as a designer have to make a proper choice whether I should go for high level programming or assembly level programming. Once again, it depends upon the criticality of the application. Assembly language programming is the process of writing processor specific machine code in mnemonic form, converting the mnemonic into actual processor instructions, which is called as assembly machine language, and associated data using an assembler. So I will show you. Already we have seen all these things in 8086. Each line of an assembly language program is split into 4 fields. One is label, opcode, operand, and comments. Label is an optional field. A label is an identifier used extensively in programs to reduce the reliance on programmers for remembering where data or code is located. Label is commonly used for representing memory location, address of a program, subroutine, code portion, etc. The maximum length of a label differs between assemblers. Assemblers insist strict formats for labeling. Labels are always suffixed by a colon and begin with a valid character. Labels can contain number from 0 to 9 and special characters such as underscores. For example, delay is a label here. Move r0 comma hash 255 is the instruction. Okay, opcode, move is the opcode and operands are the r0 and hash 255 are the part of the operands. So what does it mean? We have written a comment, load register r0 with 255, djnz, right, jump on no 0, r1 comma delay, decrement r1, djnz means decrement, jump on no 0, decrement r1 and loop till r1 becomes 0, ret return to calling program. Okay, now assembly source file to hex file translation, how it happens, that we will see. The assembly language program written in assembly code is saved. as .asm file or a .src file or a format supported by the assembler. Similar to C and other high-level language programming, it is possible to have multiple source files called modules in assembly language programming. Each module is represented by a .asm or src file or the assembler supported file format similar to the .c files in C programming. The software utility called assembler performs the translation of assembly code to the machine code. The assemblers for different family of target machines are different. A51 macro assembler from Keel Software is a popular assembler for the 8051 family microcontroller. Each source file can be assembled separately to examine the syntax errors and incorrect assembly instructions. Assembling of each source file generates a corresponding object file. The object file does not contain the absolute address of where the generated code needs to be placed. That is a relocatable code on the program memory. The software program called linker or locator is responsible for assigning absolute address to object file during the linking process. The absolute object file created from the object files corresponding to different source code modules contain information about the address where each instruction needs to be placed in code memory. A software utility called object to hex file converter translates the absolute object file to corresponding hex. So how it happens? Assembly language to machine language conversion process. You can see source file 1, okay, .asm file is there. Then module will get assembled, that will go to object file, source file 2 .asm, right? Then module assembler object file 2 library files will get connected with this object files, then it will go to linker or locator. From that object file will be created, finally object to hex file conversion, and then it will go to the machine code. So this is the general process of conversion assembly language to machine language. What are the advantages? Efficient code memory, data memory usage, so it will be more optimized, memory optimized compared to high level programming. High performance, low level hardware access, code reverse engineering is possible. Drawback, high development time. Obviously, since it is memory optimization, you have to break your head in writing the program, right? Developer dependency, non-portable. One thing you remember, whatever is flexible in life, it's going to take, right, a lot of time. If you feel something is flexible, it's going to consume some time afterwards. If you feel something is very tough at the initial, it is going to help you afterwards in some other way. In the same fashion, assembly program obviously will take some time to write the code, but it is very optimized in terms of memory. But high level program is easy to write, but it will take a lot of memory, because memory is one of the constraints for embedded system, so you have to think in that fashion also. Embedded firmware development using high level languages. Now we'll see, previously we have seen assembly, now we'll see high level. The embedded firmware is written in any high level language like C, C++. A software utility called cross compiler converts the high level language to target processor specific machine code. The cross compilation of each module generates a corresponding object file. The object file does not contain the absolute address of where the generated code needs to be placed, that is relocatable code on the program memory. The software program called a linker or locator is responsible for assigning absolute address to object files during the linking process. The absolute object file created from the object files corresponding to different source code modules contain information about the address where each instruction need to be placed in code memory. A software utility called object to hex file converter translates the absolute object file to corresponding hex file in binary file. Right? High level language to machine language conversion. Previously we have seen how assembly will be converted into machine. Now we'll see how .c file will be converted into hex file. Once again, module cross compiler you require, object file 1, source file 2, modular cross compiler, object file 2. Obviously once again you require all the library files. Linker or locator is also required in this case also, absolute object file. Then from that you will generate the hex file. These all steps you people have done in C programming, but only thing is that you have not realized what exactly is happening at the back end. What are the advantages? Reduced development time, developer dependency, and portability. Okay. Next, we'll see embedded firmware development, mixing of assembly language with high level language. Even that is possible. In most of the industry, they will mix some part of the program they will write in C, some other part they will write in assembly. Certain situations, embedded firmware development may require the mixing of assembly language with high level language or vice versa. Interrupt handling source code is already available in high level language or assembly language, etc. are examples. High level languages and low level languages can be mixed in three different ways. Mixing assembly language with high level language like C, mixing high level language like C with assembly language, inline assembling. The passing of parameters and return values between high level and low level language is cross compiler specific. Right now, I will stop this video here only. In the next video, I will explain you what is the difference between C and embedded C.